before we start today's webinar. For Sarah Thomas, the Acro Junior Olympic National Chair, she began her Acro coaching career in 2001 by pioneering the first Acro team in San Antonio, Texas. By 2004, she produced her first national team members and international medalists. Since 2004, Sarah's athletes have consistently won titles, national team placements, and international medals, including gold. Her athletes have been a part of the last 3 World Championship teams for acrobatic gymnastics. And again, she is the current National Junior Olympic Committee Chair for acrobatics and is also responsible for overseeing the structure and development of the Junior Olympic acrobatic program. A little bit about Arthur Davis. Some of you may be familiar with shows like You Think You Can Dance and the Today Show, and more recently, America's Got Talent. Well, Arthur Davis actually began his career as a 2-time world champion in acrobatic gymnastics. He is a USA Gymnastics Hall of Fame member, a performer for Cirque du Soleil, and 2-time finalist on America's Got Talent. And he is the creator of Acro Army as well as their choreographer. So I will let him start off and tell everyone a little bit about his journey with the Acro program. Arthur?
Hi. Hi, everyone. So happy to be on the call. I actually just wanted to start with a quick video, and then I'll get right into my presentation.
Acrobatic training camp. Headed to New York today.
It's the last day out here at acrobatic training camp. Headed to New York today. Gotta do a little practice this morning.
By Arthur Davis, our choreographer. We're a group of 17 acrobats
from all over the country, all different ages and sizes.
Put together by Arthur Davis, our choreographer, a celebrity in the acro world.
I love these kids. They've been working so hard, I just don't want to let them down.
Acro Army! This is what America's Got Talent is all about. You're unbelievable. Welcome to the finals.
You guys excited?
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for being on the call. You got to see a little bit of the personality there and some behind-the-scenes stuff of the kids. Such great kids, and I love this first shot of them. This is the whole Acro Army team from last season, and I love it because they're just dressed as normal people. And you can see all the different sizes and just how different they look and how different they are. And the fact that they all can in one sport. They're ages 11 to 27. Of course, they're all in different partnerships. But all of these kids hold national titles, and some of them hold international gold medals as well. So I love that part about it because, you know, your normal, some of these kids would not fit into any other gymnastics discipline. Next slide, please. So I'm actually one of those kids. I fell in love with gymnastics, just like so many people when I was 6 years old after seeing my sisters do it. My parents, after I was flipping all around the house, they sent me to a dance studio, where I actually started basic tumbling and some basic acro. So I really developed my love there at Miss Linda's, and but I got too tall before I knew it. So you can't see me because this is a webinar, but I'm about 6'5", and that's just not the size that it's too big to be a gymnast, artistic gymnast. But I loved gymnastics and I loved dance, and I didn't know where that was going to take me. When I was 18, I happened to see an acro performance, and immediately when I saw that, I knew that sport was for me. It had both gymnastics, it had dance, it had, you know, floor, which is my favorite part of gymnastics, and I was able to do it being tall. I went through probably 6 or 7 different partners, as can happen when you're in partnerships, and that's just a good part of life to learn how to deal with, saying hello and saying goodbye. And I had many different coaches to help me out. I met my coach there in the picture with me, Yuri Vorobiev, at my first World Championships, and the second I met him, I knew we were destined to be working together somehow. So it was a relationship that I developed over about 3 years, and he came to America. And right around that time, I met my partner, Shanae Booth. Next slide, please. She's such an incredible person. And again, when we met, it was pretty magical. Both of us had 6 or 7 years of experience already. So when we got together, her and I and Yuri, we actually won world championships in 10 months. Probably one of the most grueling, as coaches know when they're training at a high level, and yet satisfying things that I've ever done. And I'm so grateful to Shanae and to Yuri for that experience. And I really thought that was kind of the pinnacle of my career at that point. But actually, it was just the beginning. And this is what, Acro has offered me so many different opportunities. At the end of that second World Championships that we won, my coach literally said to us, I think you should go and, be creative and travel the world and use your talents for something, that you can utilize when you're young. And I was 30 at that point. So we decided to do that. And that first summer, we did about 300 shows between SeaWorld and the zoo, and we actually found an audition for America's Got Talent. It was that first season. And we went on that show having no idea what entertainment was like or, what that would bring. And it was very eye-opening and actually really incredible, because that's when I understood that you can get Acro on a world stage, and it's beautiful for people to watch. They love to watch it. So it really spurred me on. After that, Shanae and I then started working for Cirque du Soleil and about several different entertainment companies that took us all over the world. We did 30+ countries, and we did really very meaningful things and very extravagant things. Meaningful things like we performed for the Dream Foundation. We did the opening ceremonies for the Deaf Olympics in Taipei. But we also got to do things like the U.S. Olympic trials and show with 200 Bollywood dancers and a crowd of 60,000 people in India. Just really interesting and unique events all over the world. So I was very grateful for that. And I thought, well, that's the pinnacle. However, I started to get kind of tired of traveling and performing all the time. It's an on-the-go lifestyle. And so I wondered what I was going to do next. So next slide. Choreography. I'd always loved dance and choreography, and since I started Acro, I had been doing choreography. I decided to really focus all of my energy in that direction and pull back from traveling internationally and work with all the kids around the U.S. And honestly, it was actually more rewarding for me than competing or performing. So everything kind of builds on itself. I was fortunate enough to work with Michael and Kristen, Michael Rodriguez and Kristen Allen, who were the world champions after we were, and also won World Games. And then most recently, Ryan Ward and Kylie Boynton, who are the current World Cup champions. And I actually worked with Ryan and Kylie since they were 6 and 5 years old, which is so funny. And to see them, you as coaches, you see these kids grow up and you're just like, am I that old? Has it been that long? But at the same time, it's so fulfilling because you can see their success and that in some way you had a part in that. Because that's what we're really here to do, is facilitate people's dreams. And this, doing thousands of routines around the country, I worked with the national team and the world team and still do, really prepared me for my next step. Next slide. And that was Acro Army. And what a journey that was. I could literally speak for hours about this specific event. But what I do want to convey is it was an extremely trying experience, only from just sheerly, logistics even. Getting 19 people together from across the country, putting them on the stage week after week, creating new routines, 14-hour days, collaborating with NBC. These are things that I had not quite experienced yet, but it was so worth it and so doable because we were able to get Acro on a world stage, and the experience was actually really, really beautiful. Next slide. One of the things that made this experience so meaningful and so beautiful and so successful was that these kids already had discipline from Acro training. They already knew how to work together. They were very communicative. In Acro, you actually are physically responsible for another person, and you have to put your trust in another person. And those are fundamental relationship qualities that you need to develop. So these kids were really great at that, as well as throughout this show, you know, it can really inflate your ego and do all kinds of things that are actually illusory, but it kept these kids really grounded. They were able to stay humble, they were able to stay kind, and one of the best things is that at the end of the show, everyone from the wardrobe to the executive producers were congratulating me and telling me how much they love these kids. And that to me was the biggest success because, again, we're about creating better human beings. And what was really beautiful is that our Acro community was really there to support us. You can see some of these pictures of kids sending in, you know, and Jim sending in social media, and we got letters and we got phone calls, and it was really, really beautiful and bolstered us, as well as the support of USA Gymnastics, which was integral to our success. Next slide, please. And so if you are thinking about developing an Acro program and wondering what some of the other benefits are, there's so many career paths you can actually take from this. You can see here some of my Acro Army kids. Brennan on the right there, he's in a show in Vegas called The Rev now. He's been in it for over a year and really enjoying that. Very successful show in Vegas. Leslie Munoz is the top of the trio on the left, and these are new partners for her, and she's traveling in a show called Empire throughout Canada and the United States. And then Brian Allen in the middle has chosen to go to college, and he got a college scholarship for diving, which is incredible. And there's also acrobatics and tumbling programs, I think in 8 or 9 different colleges now that offer scholarships to acrobats as well. And we have some acrobats doing that. So there's really incredible things. And the longevity of an acrobat is actually really interesting. I didn't stop competing till I was 30. And I didn't stop really performing until I was, 36, 37. And I could still even perform today if I wanted to. So there is that added benefit as well. Next slide, please. So the most impressive thing to me about Acro is really how it develops people into leaders. And it's kind of the default because the very nature of Acro is a physical representation of how to get along with people, how to inspire people, how to make something happen from being connected to another person. You can see Ryan and Kylie here with these young kids. And, all of us were those kids at one point to some degree. And to be able to go through that, achieve goals, and then to come back and be that for someone else, that's really the most meaningful thing. And, who knows? But Acro such wonderful opportunities in my life, and interesting thing is that each step has led to the next. So I couldn't have done Acro Army without choreography. I couldn't have done choreography without all my Acro training. And I couldn't have done that Acro training in the way I did without my beginning in gymnastics. So there's, it can add a lot to your program, and it can really facilitate keeping kids in your program, especially if they, have grown out of another discipline. So I'm so grateful for my experience, and I'm so grateful for you guys listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you to USA Gymnastics for being a part of my journey the whole way. And Elizabeth Millard and Luann Pezic and Sarah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Arthur. And that was really a great look into the possibilities of Acro and where you could go with your team. So thank you again for being on this call. And now we will jump into the second portion of today's webinar with Sarah Thomas, talking about how to actually start your Acro program at your gym and develop your pre-team. Sarah?
Thanks, Lakeisha, and thanks, Arthur. You've had an amazing Acro journey, and I feel very privileged to have been a part of that journey. And just like an interesting story when you were talking about how, you guys came together and won your first world championship in just 10 months. I remember having a video of one of the first competitions that you and Shanae did, and I sent this to my now husband, who was an international judge in Belgium at the time, and I said, you've got to see this mixed pair. I'm telling you, these are the next world champions. Mark my words. And he's like, who are they? Like, we don't know who they are. And I said, you just wait, you will know who they are. And they did. They won the world title that year. And so But
Sarah.
now it's your time. Now it's time to talk about how to start your acro journey at your gym, and that all starts with developing a pre-team in your gym. So next slide. I just wanted to go over what is acro because some of you may not be totally familiar with it. I know Arthur talked a lot about it. I've actually had to talk to a lot of newspapers recently with my kids making world team, and they all want to know, well, what is acro? We've never heard of what acro is. And the way I describe it to them is that it's a floor exercise to music, and it has gymnastics elements, dance, tumbling, walkovers, all the things you see in artistic gymnastics, but it's with partners. So you'll see 2 or 3 partners also doing tosses and pyramids like you would see in Cirque du Soleil or even pairs figure skating. And then they seem to understand and grasp the concept. Next slide. There are actually 5 disciplines within acro that you can compete in. There's pairs, women's pair, men's pair, and mixed pair. And then there's also groups, women's group and men's group. Next slide. When you compete in acro, there are 3 different exercises. The first is the balance exercise, which will have pyramids and showcase flexibility, strength, and agility. And then there's also the dynamic exercise. That's where you're going to see the tosses, the tumbling, and the high-flying moves. Next slide. So you can see some of the tosses there. Anything that is involving flight and motion is considered dynamic. And next slide. The third and final exercise that they'll compete in is the combined exercise, which has elements of both balance and dynamic. And as far as the competitive program within the U.S., the compulsory levels 5 through 7, they will do a combined exercise only. Levels 8 through 10 will do balance and dynamic. And then at the elite level, they will do all 3 routines, balance, dynamic, and combined. Next slide. So there are many benefits to your gym. Of course, our gym owner is most importantly concerned with the financial aspect, and we have seen a huge financial gain with having acro in our gym. For one, there are just not many gyms that have acro, so if you can get a program started, it's something unique that's only to your gym, and if people want it, while they can go many places to get gymnastics, you may be the only one in your area with acro, so it provides a unique opportunity for you to get more students coming to your gym. It also offers more competitive outlets. As Arthur said, not every gymnast is going to fit the mold of artistic gymnastics, and so this is another avenue to offer for them to compete. It also is something where you can retain athletes that are currently in your gym. We see in our gym, you know, they hit about level 7 in artistic gymnastics, and then we start to see a big fallout where they've either, you know, outgrown the sport, or they're developing fears, or they've gone as far as they can go, but they really love gymnastics. They want to stay involved, and instead of them leaving the gym, there's another opportunity for them to go and move on and develop another part of their gymnastics career. Next slide. For the athletes, there are huge benefits in terms of you will probably find that there are a lot more athletes that fit the mold of competing in acro versus there is a specific body type for artistic gymnastics or even rhythmic gymnastics, whereas we need lots of big, strong, tall people and tiny, flexible people of all ages. As Arthur said, he won his world title at age 27, and that's pretty much unheard of. Unless you're Oksana Chusovitina, it's pretty much unheard of for gymnasts to be competing at the Olympic level at that age. And so there's really a long career that you can have in acro. And also there's a lot less training hours involved in the beginning. Now, obviously, when you're at the elite level, you're going to be doing the same level of training as the artistic gymnast. But in the beginning, for example, if you're a level 5 acro gymnast, you can probably do 2 days a week for 2 hours, versus if you're level 5 artistic, you're doing probably 3 days a week for 4 hours at a time. And that's because we're doing one exercise. We're not doing 4 events. We're only doing one event. So it's less time, and that means also a little bit less cost as far as tuition goes. So we find that families that can't put in as big a commitment to do the artistic team really enjoy doing the acro team. Next slide. So the first thing you want to do is educate your clients, because most of them probably have not heard of acro in the general public. They've heard of artistic gymnastics with the bars, beam, and vault, and they've maybe even seen rhythmic gymnastics, but most of them have not seen acro in its competitive form. So one of the things that is good to do is start a bulletin board, put up some pictures, put up definitions, you know, get some interest starting. And then one of the things I did when I started acro in my gym was I put videos up on the TV in the waiting room, and I just played those videos from nationals and let them run, and people would start watching it. And when they see acro, they get really excited about it. What's that? That's awesome. Like, what is this? Is this something you can compete in? And so then you can point them toward your bulletin board and say, yeah, you know, we're getting ready to start this new class or this new pre-team, and you get them interested in it so that when you actually do offer the class or the pre-team to them, they know what you're talking about and they're ready to sign up. The other thing you can do is bring in a local club to do a demo, and that's always great because when kids see acro, they love it, and it's really important to let them see what it's all about. And USA Gymnastics actually offers mentor clubs in all of the regions where you have coaches that are just there on hand for you to call for training, for doing local demos in your clubs that are available. And they're a really great resource. You should definitely tap into those people and try to get them in your gym to help you get started. Next slide. The other way to get kids interested in acro is just give them a taste in their recreational gymnastics classes. Spend maybe the last 5 minutes of each class doing some basic acro skills. You can put some pictures on the wall and say, okay, who can recreate these pictures? And then just incorporate that into your classes and your summer camp. Next slide. When you want to begin recruiting for your pre-team, you can start in your advanced rec classes, your tumbling classes, and your gymnastics classes. The tumbling classes will have kids that are already focused on floor exercise, so that's a good place to start. But then also, you know, maybe your superstars, like your advanced gymnastics classes, they have kids in there that usually have a pretty good talent base. And a lot of times either they're, quote, too old to start in the artistic world because maybe they're 9, 10, and 11, which is fine for acro because they can, you know, they can start at that age and still move up pretty fast. Or they're maybe really good at some events, but they're struggling on bars. Or, as we said, the body type isn't right for artistic gymnastics, but they still want to compete in something. And that's where I found all the kids that started on my pre-team. I just went to different classes and looked for the kids that were flexible, that were good in their tumbling skills, that had some dance ability, and those are the kids that I chose. And remember, you want to choose kids of various ages and sizes. Although the skills that we're doing can work with kids that are the same size, it's always a little bit easier if you have some bigger bases and some smaller tops to work with. Next slide. So then you've got to sell it to the parents because they're the ones that are going to pay the bills and get the kids there. And I found the most effective thing is to do an invitation letter because, as we know, there's nothing that gets parents more excited than to see that their child has been specifically chosen for an invitation-only class. And they don't have to know how many people you're inviting, but when they see that word invitation only, they get really excited. And of course, they want their child to be part of it. So when you send home your letter, make sure you're providing all the information. Include the days, the times, the cost, attach the registration paper with it, make it really turnkey. Give a brief description of acro just in case they haven't seen it. tell them what the class will focus on, who the instructors are going to be, everything. That way it'll save you a bunch of phone calls and emails. Definitely give your email and ask for a response back either way. So even if they are going to join or not going to join, just say, please just let me know if you'd like to join this class or you'd like to stay in your current recreational gymnastics class. That way you can track your recruitment process and know if you need to send out more letters or about how many kids are going to end up showing up. 6 is a good number to start with. We started with less, but that gives you enough kids to do some pairs and trios. Next slide. So typical hours for pre-team, 2 times a week, either 1 to 2 hours. It's just going to depend on how many kids you have and what age they are. Our pre-team is 2 times a week for 2 hours. And in the beginning, we only had about 3 or 4 kids that started, and they were all kind of on the younger side. We usually start around age 5, maybe 4-year-old if they're, more mature, but about age 5 is where you want to start. And we definitely don't have the 5-year-olds picking up 5-year-olds. That's why you need the older kids there because, as far as ages go, 5 is the youngest, but they really shouldn't be basing each other. But 1 to 2 hours works. Once we got more kids in, and we have 14 kids in the pre-team right now, 2 hours is totally fine, and we can fill up that time frame and with no problem. Next slide. One of the beautiful things about Acro is you do not need a lot of expensive equipment to get started. So there's not a lot of risk to the gym owner, as far as getting the program started and then feeling like they're going to be stuck having paid for a lot of equipment. The only really Acro-specific equipment you can have, and you don't even necessarily need it, are these Acro blocks. And these run like $40. You can buy them online or you can make them. I mean, all it is wood and screws, and if you have a dad that's handy, they can usually put these together. And if you don't want to have them or you can't get a hold of them, you can also do your shapes on the low balance beam. So really, you can do Acro with things that you have in your gym right now. Next slide. So one of the questions I always get asked by gym owners or other coaches is, we don't have any coaches that have any Acro background. We don't know anything about Acro. This is going to be really hard because we have like 0 training. Well, you have more training than you think because for the most part, anything that you're going to do in Acro pre-team are going to be the same basic shapes and tumbling elements as regular gymnastics. They're learning hollow hold. They're learning tuck shape, pike shape, straddle shape. They're learning arch and round and all of these things that you do in your regular gymnastics class or artistic gymnastics. We focus on floor, tumbling, trampoline, and then we throw in the Acro-specific skills on blocks. Proper hand grip is important, and there's a picture there that shows the 2 fingers in the front, so you don't want to hold the blocks like P-bars, and that's really like the basic thing that you need to know about blocks. If you're gripping them correctly, then you pretty much can do blocks. We also have on the USAG website routine videos where you can see the skills. It shows you each skill and it has music for you. There's a JO code that actually writes out each skill, specifically what you have to do. And they're really very basic skills and basic shapes that you can learn very easily. And again, it would be a great idea to contact your mentor club and have a coach come in for an afternoon and just show your coaches all of these Acro-specific skills. But again, a lot of it is stuff you really already know. Next slide. So now I'm going to show you actually the block positions that we do with some videos and just show you each of the shapes. We only do tuck, pike, and straddle in pre-team. We don't even get into jumping to handstand because that's a little too advanced for very new kids or very young kids to do. So Lakita's going to bring up some videos. And so she's doing the tuck shape, and really you're just looking for knees in the chest. Feet need to be in front. You can see she has 2 fingers in the back, and they'll hold each shape for about 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how advanced they are. We basically just put them in a line, and you have one leader, and they're the counter, and they always get excited to be the counter. And they get to be in the front, and they count to 5 or count to 10, and then they come down in the back, and they practice their finish position. So that's the tuck. And then I think we're going to look at pike next, which actually starts in the tuck position, and that she extends her legs. The higher you can get your feet above your hips, the better. Now, she is pretty advanced. They won't look like that. Their feet will barely be off the ground in the beginning, but you just encourage them to keep their feet up and get through the whole 10 seconds without touching the floor. Next is a straddle shape. So their legs are going to go on the outside of their hands, and again, you want the feet above the hips as high as possible. This is another shape that's difficult in the beginning. A lot of times they'll rock back in their hands and kind of fall on their butt. So make sure they have a soft place to land. You don't want to put them on a hard floor. But that's the straddle shape. So those are the basic shapes that you're going to do. And if you only have a 15-minute rotation for it, you do 5 of each shape, and that pretty much gets you through your block rotation. And that's all the shapes they need to know as far as preteam goes. So this next slide will take you through a typical practice. And again, you can lengthen or rotate these rotations in to fit whether you're doing a 1-hour or 2-hour practice. So you're going to start with your general warm-up, cardio, stretching, splits. You want to stress flexibility because in acro we do use a lot more flexibility elements than maybe in artistic gymnastics. But that warm-up, again, is the same warm-up you're going to do in any of your traditional gymnastics classes. So there's nothing new about the warm-up. Then you've got your 15 minutes of tumbling stations, cartwheel drills, handstand rolls, kickovers, boulder drills. Again, this is nothing new to the coaches. It's the same stuff that they're doing in any basic tumbling class or rec gymnastics class. Then you get into your acro-specific rotations. You've got your blocks with your tuck, pike, straddle. They can also practice standing on them and just incorporate contests. So you have them all lined up, and if they do 5 of each shape, then number 5 is going to be the contest, and you get to pick who has the best tuck or who has the best pike and straddle, and they always try hard in the very last one. So just a good motivator for them. Then acro skills for 15 minutes, the level 5 pairs and trios, and I'm going to have a slide later on in the presentation that shows you kind of how to organize that, because you don't necessarily want to like partner them up and have specific partners, because then they, that always causes drama because this person doesn't like this person, or I want to work with this person. So the way we do it is we do a rotation, and then everybody gets to work with everybody. Next slide. You can also have a rotation with trampoline and tumble track, working on all the jumps, tuck, pike, straddle, and then also your tumbling, more advanced tumbling. And then conditioning. You want to start introducing conditioning because it is a pre-team, but do it in a fun way. Get some stations, some races. We actually combine it with trampoline at our gym because they love trampoline. So we have a trampoline station, and then they have to go around to each conditioning station to get back to the trampoline again. So it kind of gets them excited about going through the conditioning stations to get back to trampoline. We also have these conditioning cards, which are laminated cards, a little bit bigger than playing cards, but they shuffle them up and they pull one out, and each card has a different conditioning exercise on it, and each kid gets to pick a card and lead the exercise. And so they like that too because they get to be in charge of something. You can rotate the activities for shorter practices, always include some sort of tumbling, because that's the basis of everything. And then also you can adjust the times if you have a longer practice just to fill the 2 hours. And again, keep things moving. Sorry, my phone is ringing. I hope everyone can't hear that. Next slide. So the next slide is we're going to look at some videos on how to organize your skills. Okay. So what you're going to see here is the kids are doing some pair skills. And what I've done is I've just lined up all the bases. And the tops are going to go down base one by one by one, and that way they get a lot of turns. It's very organized. Everybody gets to work with every top. Everybody gets to work with every base. And you can see the skills are very low to the ground in the beginning. And then the next video is going to give you some progression. So this is a stand on thigh skill, and it starts as easy as stepping up and doing it on the ground. So maybe week 1, that's what they're doing. And then when they get more advanced, and you can do that with kids of the same size too. Then they go to like a wall or a pole, and then they practice doing the same skill, a little bit higher, but they have support. And then when they've mastered that, then they're going to do it away from the wall or away from the pole. And all of the skills are like that, where there's a very low version, a medium, and a high. And so you can see there's no equipment. It's just kids doing the skills and utilizing the floor and a wall. In this next slide, there's trios, and again, they're doing the same skill you saw in pairs, and they're doing it on a low, very low to the ground. And then once they master that, they're going to go up on their knees, and then that's like the level 5 version of the skill. And then if they stood up in a lunge, then you get the level 6 version, so everything takes you progressively higher, but it all starts very low and very safe. So towards the end of your session, you want to plan a show and tell for the parents, because again, they may not be completely familiar with Acro, so you want to show them what they're doing. You can use the level 5 routine music as a basis and maybe take some of the simpler elements from the routine. You certainly don't have to have them do the exact level 5 routine, but you can use that as a guideline. Incorporate a block show in there and have your blocks there where the kids can come show what they can do, as well as the partner elements. And then follow up with information about the competitive team and how they can move up levels at the end of the summer, or whenever you're going to start the actual competitive team. You can also give each of your pre-team families free admission to a home meet if you have an Acro team, or plan a field trip where you can take the pre-team kids to an actual competitive Acro meet, because again, when they see kids competing in Acro, they get really excited about it. And when we had meets at our gym, we get so many new kids just from people coming and watching those meets. Next slide. So if you are ready to start Acro in your gym, you have a lot of resources. Again, my name is Sarah Thomas. I'm the National JO Chair. And then we also have Elizabeth Millard and Luann Pezic, who can also help you get started. But I really encourage you to find and contact your mentor clubs and your mentor coaches in your area, because they are so invaluable as far as training, answering, simple questions. No question is too small. Get them on the phone and ask them about getting started. They'll be really excited to come to your gym, to bring their athletes to your gym and get you started in the world of Acro. Are there any questions?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Sarah. And we do have some questions here from some of our attendees. So awesome. The first question is, what type of conditioning would the Acro athletes have to do, more specifically the bases? What type of conditioning do you recommend for them on building strength to hold the top?
Well, there's a lot of partner strength that you can do. A lot of you probably have the ladders along the wall, like wall bars ladders, and the bases can put their tops on their shoulders and hold on to the wall bars and do squats that way, and that way they're actually like lifting their partner's weight. They can also lay down and they put their partner's feet in their hands, and they can press up and down with the top holding the base's feet. You can do a lot of things together, but we do a lot of the same, conditioning exercises that the artistic team does. They do rope climb, they do box jumps, they do step-ups with weights onto boxes. It's a lot of leg strength. You want to encourage your bases to use your legs and not their arms, because obviously their legs are stronger and it all starts in the legs and then goes through the arms. But if they're only using their arms, then it's going to hurt their back. It's going to give them forearm splints. So we try to do as much partner conditioning, but we also use traditional conditioning that you would do on the artistic, just with the artistic gymnast.
Okay, wonderful. Our second question has to do with where to find your mentor clubs for your different regions and areas. So actually I can help out with this one. So to find your Acro mentor club, you can go to the USA Gymnastics website, usagym.org, and you'll want to go to the Acro page. And on the Acro page, there is an How to Start an Acro Program PDF version. So within this guide to how to start your acrobatic gymnastics program at your gym, we have our list of mentor clubs available here, and this can be magnified so you can see the clubs in their areas. But we do have our list of mentor clubs here available that you can contact with their the contact person, and here goes Sarah Thomas right here, their contact person, email address, and telephone number. So we do have plenty of aids available to you on our website for that as well. And you can also visit on the same page. If you go up just a little further on the page and click on the Junior Olympic program to the left.
Yes, that's where you're going to find your videos.
Right, exactly. That's where you'll find your Junior Olympic compulsory and routine videos. So this is another great resource for you that we have just available on our website for you to view our different acro disciplines there. All right. And our next question, what is the name of the company that you could buy the blocks for the conditioning or training that you referenced a little earlier in the video, Sarah?
There is a company in California that I'm trying to, it's actually through Kristen Allen. So if you search Kristen Allen, let me just see if I can pull it up, because she actually has somebody that makes acro blocks. Let me just see if I can find it.
And any of those mentor gyms, mentor clubs have contacts for people that make blocks as well if you don't come across anything.
Yeah. There's a website called acroblocks.com, and there's information for buying blocks from Kristen. But yes, we have a random dad that makes all of our blocks because he's learned how to do it, and then he sells them to everybody else. So almost every mentor club has the random dad that does blocks because they're really not that hard. And if you can just get one set, you can figure out how to make them.
Awesome. Thank you for that resource. The next question for Arthur. For Acro Army, you did mention that you are the sole choreographer for the group. For an Acro team at that level, would you suggest one coach or choreographer, or would you suggest more than one?
It really depends. It's a good question. It really depends on what the capabilities are and the time commitment is of the coach. So sometimes, you know, when you're coaching an acro team, you have more than one coach because one of the coaches is better at choreography. Sometimes the coaches don't do any choreography and they hire in an outside choreographer, which is how I work with a lot of different gyms. Now in Sarah's gym, she's done some choreography. Her other coach, Amy, also does choreography, and they bring me in. So it's kind of a combined effort. With Acro Army, I didn't have, honestly, the resources to have another person. And I love doing it, so I just did all of it, actually. But I think, you know, if it wouldn't have been for the actual technical training of the kids from all their coaches, it would have been so difficult to maintain or even create something like that. So, yeah, it really depends. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. No, that was really helpful, I think, to a lot of these gyms. The next question, when did you start doing the choreography? So this could be a two-part question. Sarah and Arthur, you can both answer this if you'd like. But when to start doing choreography for?
Oh, like what time in the season, or
what
when?
Time in
the development of the kid?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when
well,
to introduce it, for their development.
That's a good question. Typically, you have your team members kind of firmed up by around August, September, and then I usually have them go at least 2 months, 2 to 3 months learning skills, depending on when our first competition is, because it's really hard to choreograph a routine when they have no skills, and I think Arthur will confirm that, because you kind of need to know how long the skills take and, how they're getting in and out of them. So I like them to have a basis of skills, and then October is like the earliest I usually start choreography, because then at that point they've developed enough of a relationship to know the group's strengths and weaknesses, and again, they have some skills under their belt, because the hard part is when you choreograph a routine to certain skills and then they don't really get those skills, or you change the skills, and then you basically have to change the choreography a lot, and then it's not even worth what you did. So I don't do it immediately.
And if you're doing an acro pre-team where they might not be competing that season, start immediately by just doing some fun exercises of like group type dance things. I mean, you can never get enough dance. It's an artistic portion of acro, but they're judged on it. So the more fundamentals you can get in that direction, the better. Literally, I've seen kids that cannot hardly even put one foot in front of the other, which you've probably seen this as gymnastics coaches, and then they become actually really great dancers and movers. So earlier the better from that perspective.
Awesome. Thank you all. When is the competitive season begin for acro?
The meets typically start, this year it's a little bit earlier because our nationals is a little bit earlier, but our nationals is usually towards the end of June. It's a combined nationals with tramp and tumbling and also rhythmic, which is really exciting. It's a great experience to have all three disciplines together. So we usually start local meets around February is usually the earliest. So February, March, April, they're doing competitions, and then they finish in June, which is kind of interesting because when you have artistic kids that do both, and we do have kids that compete in both acro and artistic, the seasons are flip-flops. So they're kind of finishing up when acro is getting started. So that's kind of a really neat thing because they can participate in both.
Sarah, I have a question for you. Would acro be a good fit for dance studios?
Yes, actually, we have a lot of acro clubs that started as dance studios because you don't necessarily need gymnastics equipment, and it's so dance-focused, especially when you get to the higher levels. The dance is so much more complex and so much more expressive than even what they're doing in artistic gymnastics. It's really more complicated and lends itself to what dance studios are doing. So you already have a great basis for the artistic component of acro. The level 5 routines are designed to be able to be done on a stretch of panel mats, which most dance studios, when they're doing their tumbling lessons, they'll put out a strip of panel mats and be tumbling on them. You can do the whole entire routine in a line. The level 5 routine doesn't go all over the floor. You can do it in a line back and forth on a set of panel mats. And it's not super high skills, so you don't need high ceilings, you don't need a full 40 by 40, and you don't need a lot of extra equipment.
Okay, wonderful. Our next question for you all, do you recommend running a recreational level acro class before establishing a pre-team, or just drawing from the more advanced recreational classes and tumbling classes, as you mentioned in the presentation?
Well, we've done a recreational acro class, and we've had success with it. I think almost too much success that we can't find enough time in the day to have it where it doesn't overlap with actual acro team practice. I think either way is fine. If you want to go to the competitive route, you can get started in that right away, or you can start a recreational class and try to get things in, the kids getting into it before you go the competitive route. It starts out a little bit slow because when you bring in a new class, you might only have 2 or 3 or 4 kids in the class to begin with, but now all of our acro classes are full. But I think you can go either way. You can start the recreational route and have it lead to a competitive route, or if you just want to go competitive, they can work that way too, because if you have a pre-team, they're not competing immediately. So it just kind of depends on which direction you want to go in.
Perfect. So next question, how do you go about incorporating co-ed classes? Do you run both all-girls classes and co-ed, or how would a gym go about starting that?
We've always had the acro class open and said it's for boys and girls. We get more girls than boys. It's interesting because there are some gyms that have like tons of boys, and like I've only had like 3 boys like ever. And it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, because like you got to get your first boy and then you get more boys. So if you can get that first boy in there, then you usually can get more. A lot of gyms that have these like parkour classes and kind of Ninja Warrior type things, there's a lot of boys there that can do tumbling elements. And I had one that was in that type of class that saw acro and then came over and wanted to do acro. But the acro class and the pre-team, you can run with girls and boys because they're pretty much doing the same thing, and there's nothing there that boys wouldn't be able to do versus girls or vice versa. But it's always about trying to get boys involved. Arthur, you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some gyms. My coach's gym, for instance, he has a lot of boys, and that's just something that's kind of always been the case for him. But acro in itself is a mixed gender sport, and it's just that way from the very beginning. So it makes it really simple. You can just boys and girls all together and mix it up right away from the beginning, because that's how you'll find your partnerships also, and it also makes the dynamic interesting, and that's really true to the sport.
Perfect. That's a great segue actually into this next question. So Arthur, would you include dance training at a pre-team level? Would that be something to suggest to gymnastics clubs?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put too much focus on it, but the focus I would put on it would be kind of the fun, like a little bit of ballet fundamentals when you're doing your warm-up. So these are things like straightening your legs and pointing your feet, which I think gymnastics does anyway. And then also make it really fun, because kids love to dance. So whether they have experienced it yet or not, you put some music on or you do a little thing, and it's really enjoyable for them. So if you have both aspects of it, I would say at the pre-team level, keep it lighter. Introduce it because it's part of the sport as well. Just make it fun and accessible.
Wonderful. Well, that concludes our questions for today. We want to thank you, Arthur Davis and Sarah Thomas, for being on the call with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much, you guys.
We hope all of our gymnastics clubs got a great introduction to the acrobatics program. And again, this will be hosted on our website on the Acro page and on the USA Gymnastics webinars page. So again, thank you all for attending today's webinar, and we will see you for the next USA Gymnastics webinar. Begin here, go anywhere.
Thank you.